Coming up, Tzu Chi volunteers from South Africa travel to Swaziland to conduct home visits. Tzu Chi volunteers in Serbia join other NGOs in a meeting to discuss solutions to refugee crisis. Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Siri. Thank you for joining us. Tzu Chi volunteers from Durban, South Africa, travel to Swaziland for the 43rd time to conduct home visitations with their local counterparts. Besides delivering rice to families in need, the volunteers also brought care recipients spiritual support and encouragement. To ensure the success of the home visits, the volunteers from Durban first shared their experiences with the local volunteers in a meeting. Let's take a look.
一问心，再问心。
After paying respect to the Buddha, Tzu Chi volunteers from Durban share their experiences with their counterparts in Swaziland at a monthly meeting.
We were confused because we wrote reports of home visits in the beginning, but we stopped doing so. I am grateful to Durban volunteers for reminding us.
Putting theory into practice, the volunteers then head to the dry areas to visit families in need. They have also brought the much-needed 20-kilogram bag of rice. Besides delivering aid supplies, the volunteers also encourage these families.
Last time when Tzu Chi volunteers came to deliver rice, you asked us when we would come again. Now we have returned.
This care recipient plagued by poverty and illness needs a listener.
My younger sister needs to go out to look for food. This is not our house since our house has been destroyed by a storm. I do not have a wheelchair even though I am sick. Someone lent this wheelchair to me.
Thankfully, the volunteers bring the care recipient outside to enjoy the sunshine, which brings a smile to her face. Then there are other care recipients who care for each other, even though both are plagued by illnesses.
They are patients, but they take care of each other. One of them acts like a doctor. She even goes to the kitchen to cook with the support of crutches.
Bringing warmth to forgotten corners, volunteers also deliver rice to a depressed patient who suffers from mobility problems. Their kind gestures and singing not only cheer her up but also move her to tears. The monsoon season in Indonesia lasts from November to March the following year. But the recent rain in early March has caused severe floods in Banten. It is estimated that 5,900 families or 24,000 people have been affected by the floods. The Indonesian military and Tzu Chi volunteers are therefore working together to carry out relief missions.
The boat ride shows everyone how serious the floods are. A storm in early March has caused rivers to overflow and flood. The military and Tzu Chi volunteers have gone together to survey the disaster. They estimate that 4 towns are still flooded. In some areas, the floods are as deep as 3 meters. They estimate 5,900 families or 24,000 people have been affected by the floods. After the rain has stopped, Tzu Chi volunteers very quickly donate all types of daily supplies to the military, who will arrange them for distributions.
After the floods have occurred, society and Tzu Chi have begun providing food and other supplies to the flood victims. We want to thank Tzu Chi that every time a disaster happens, Tzu Chi will always be the first to help the victims.
Itu pasti duluan untuk membantu kita, untuk membantu masyarakat maksudnya.
The Red Cross also has set up a public kitchen in the disaster area. Tzu Chi volunteers provide food and help cook food for the victims.
Whenever a disaster hits, Tzu Chi will act at once. This time, we have given supplies that the victims need in the public kitchen.
The extent of the flood damage is still unknown, but many charity groups are ready to provide necessary assistance to help the victims.
We continue to investigate the problem of unprocessed industrial waste found in concrete aggregate, which may compromise the structural integrity of the concrete. As it turns out, oftentimes the sand and gravel suppliers themselves may not be aware that they are harvesting industrial waste instead of normal sand and gravel. We find out why in our report and how the industry is trying to cope with the problem.
The riverbed is an open area with many entrances. Often, construction waste and even industrial waste is dumped here.
We are at Miaoli's Tai'an Township upstream of the DaAi River. Over the years, typhoons and torrential rains often leave behind gaping holes on the riverbed, such as this one. If industrial waste was dumped here, it may very well be carried down the river.
The investigation leads the reporter downstream.
Here, by the midstream of DaAi River, we can see evidence of industrial waste littered all over the riverbed. In my hand is a piece of slag. Its red spots are evidence of iron rusting and heavy metals.
The byproduct of steel refining is just thrown away here without a care for the environment.
The price for dumping 1 ton of unprocessed slag is about $15, so a truckload can easily fetch over $300. Truckers just dump it on top of the embankments, and whenever it rains, the slag is washed right down the river.
In an effort to dredge Taiwan's rivers, the government has authorized the gravel industry to harvest by the rivers and inadvertently pick up littered waste as well.
There is no way to discern slag from sand with your naked eyes, as Taiwan's sand is typically grayish-black, while slag is usually the same color.
The illegal dumping of industrial waste is not only a threat to the environment, but to the gravel industry as well. So along the DaAi River, the Water Resources Agency has installed 42 surveillance stations. Every station is equipped with 4 cameras pointed at various angles. The images are then sent back to the surveillance center wirelessly.
We can't just send someone out there to monitor all day long. Through the surveillance stations, an alarm will be triggered automatically when a vehicle approaches. A person at the surveillance center will then reconfirm by evaluating the image. Between 2014 and 2015, we have made some 12 arrests.
Alas, wickedness knows no bounds.
We are at the wetlands by the estuary of Zhanghua's Dadu River. As you can see, large amount of unprocessed slag has been dumped here. Shellfish has even attached themselves to the bigger pieces.
After a contractor harvested gravel and sand from one spot, the chasm he left behind will often become a dump site for industrial waste. Anyone who comes here afterwards to harvest once again will surely pick up the waste instead.
Industrial waste has long been illegally dumped in the riverbed, farmland, mountains, and even fisheries. In recent years, the gravel industry has become the latest victim.
When doing business, builders always want the cheapest materials, so no inspection was ever done.
While the concrete industry only want the cheapest gravel and sand they can find, they forget to consider the quality of the raw materials. Even with just 1% of industrial waste mixed into the concrete can compromise its integrity. Thus now, even a traceability system is needed from their suppliers.
All raw materials of concrete, including the cement, have to have their clear content label. By implementing a proper control system, consumers will no longer have to worry.
With traceability systems in place, the raw materials are harvested and the content of the aggregate will all become transparent, thus putting an end to racketeering.
With about 2,200 Syrian refugees expected to stay in Serbia until the end of this year, the the Serbian government is planning to build a refugee center with a budget of nearly $7 million. However, the current refugee centers are already facing shortage of supplies for refugees. Therefore, the Commission for Refugees and Migration has held a meeting inviting several NGOs, including the Tzu Chi Foundation, to discuss possible solutions. The volunteers then seized the occasion to introduce instant rice to the commissioners. Let's join them there. Delivering infant formula and 100 packs of diapers to Sid Refugee Center, the volunteers have become well known for assisting Syrian refugees who are currently in Serbia. There are currently 2,200 Syrian refugees staying in Serbia, facing shortage of supplies for refugees. Commission for Refugees and Migration has invited several charity organizations to a meeting. Tzu volunteers seized the occasion to introduce instant rice to the commissioners, who were pleased after sampling.
I have to stress that when we were proposed to accept Tzu Chi, I had my basic problem, who they are, what they are. But then I realized very, very quick that, as you mentioned, Christians, they are Buddhists, but I think that God is one. This is just a different way how we are praying.
Despite the challenges ahead, members of different organizations brainstormed together to find ways to help the Syrian refugees there pursue a better future. To help the large number of refugees in Serbia, Tzu Foundation has prepared nearly 2 tons of instant rice and reusable utensils. The volunteers have worked in relays to transport these supplies to Taoyuan Airport before they were sent to Istanbul on their way to Serbia. The volunteers hope their efforts can help the refugees stay strong physically and spiritually as they continue their pursuit of a better future. After nearly an hour of driving from Taipei, the truck arrives at Taoyuan Airport's air cargo terminal.
We picked up the instant rice sent from the abode at Taipei Songshan Airport. Then we delivered them to Sanchong.
The instant rice comes in flavors, including marinara, curry, corn, and mixed vegetables. The master hopes that they meet the preferences of the people there.
The boxes of supplies have been transported from Hualien to Taipei, then to Taoyuan, ready to be sent to Serbia by air to fill the stomachs of the refugees. The supplies include 130 boxes of instant rice, 1,200 reusable bowls in 6 boxes, and 2,400 spoons in 2 boxes, which should feed 2,000 people for 10 days.
The refugees are often seen to be on the run. They live in fear every day. Today, Tzu Chi volunteers in Taiwan have the opportunity to lend our assistance.
My heart goes out to them. We are very blessed in Taiwan. I hope Syrians will be able to return to their homes soon.
The some 2-ton supply will be sent to Istanbul via Turkish Airlines passenger flight, after which they will arrive in Serbia on March 18th on a cargo plane. Traveling more than 8,000 kilometers in distance, the supplies imbued with love and blessings from people in Taiwan will help the refugees stay strong on their journey to a better future. Next, we continue our series on the rebuilding efforts in the aftermath of 311 earthquake that struck Japan 5 years ago. On March 11, 2011, Japan's National Highway No. 45 was struck by the massive tsunami, which left destruction along the coast of northeastern Japan. Today, we make a visit to Rikuzen Takata City to see how the community there has been recovering. We'll find out about a floodgate construction project and talk to the former principal of the local Hirota Elementary School, whose wife and son were lost in the disaster.
The beautiful coastline stretching alongside Highway 45 from Miyagi Prefecture north all the way to Aomori makes this one of Japan's most beautiful roadways.
Highway 45 suffered serious damage after the 311 earthquake. especially the towns along the coast, many of which were completely destroyed. The government has erected warning signs as a precaution.
These markers along the coast explain which areas are prone to flooding and remind people to evacuate quickly in case of an emergency. 5 years after the disaster, construction projects and constant traffic of large trucks are evidence that the rebuilding process is far from over.
From 2011 to 2013 was just the most basic steps for rebuilding. From 2014 to 2016, our comprehensive restoration period has been in effect. Currently, our main focus is on completing the embankment reinforcement projects, because people are naturally worried that a tsunami may happen again.
Here at Hirota Bay in Rikuzen Takata City, they are constructing a 20.5 meter high floodgate. The tsunami in 2011 measured 17 meters high and completely flattened a 350-year-old pine forest of over 70,000 trees, leaving only one tree standing, which unfortunately died a year later. Even more tragic, Rikuzen Takata City lost over 1,900 residents that day in 2011, including Mr. Sasaki's family members.
震災の時には妻とそれから2人の息子が
When the earthquake struck, my wife and second son were both at home. The water just didn't stop coming. They never had time to get up to the mountain. And in the end, this is where they died.
妻とそれからその次男坊は亡くなったということです。
Mr. Sasaki was formerly the principal of the Hirota Elementary School. He retired on the 31st of March 2011 and devoted himself to consoling surviving students and neighbors amid the sorrow of losing his wife and son.
It hurts to remember. These are some photos from before, but these days I hardly ever look at old photos. I don't want to remember. The past is the past, and there's no way they'll come back.
Every day, he shares a few words and pays his respects to his wife.
Yes, this is the envelope of the relief cash I received. I placed it here before their shrine so they can see it. And I told them when I received it, I've been careful to hold on to it.
In 2011, Tzu Chi came to Rikuzen Takata City to distribute relief cash. At that time, Mr. Sasaki was present to receive blessings and condolences from Taiwan.
I'm very grateful for this opportunity and all the help everyone has given me. Although it has been very difficult, we've all done our best to keep going forward. And I pray for everyone. I really feel such gratitude. Thank you all.
What moves people the most is not the monetary assistance, but rather the love and compassion that comes from the heart.
The contents and message of this letter really moved me deeply. It also gave me guidance to face my current circumstances. I'm very thankful for that.
As days pass and time marches on, the words of consolation and wisdom have not been forgotten. Even after 5 years, sincerity and love continue to grow where they have been shared.
Doing good deeds and fulfilling filial duties are core values of Tzu Chi's missions. Though living in modern society, Tzu Chi volunteers hope that these traditional values can continue to play an important role. Thus, they visit prisons or detention centers to remind inmates of the values they might have forgotten in life. Next, we meet a former inmate who transformed into a Tzu Chi volunteer as a result of these visits.
师兄的关心与祝福，为弟出狱后必定前去拜访。
While serving his sentence, Gao Zhaoliang came across a Tzu Chi publication about Cai Tianshen, who was jailed for drug abuse. Inspired by his transformation, Gao vowed to turn over a new leaf like Cai did and become a Tzu Chi volunteer.
I know my horrible and painful past can serve as an encouragement for current inmates and let them know that they can start life anew.
Starting over again after serving his time, Gao returned to the prison once more, but this time his role is a mentor.
他们很信任我。
They rely on me, so I want to do my best to help them.
My relatives and neighbors were all glad my son came back to me. I tell them the Buddha turned him around. To me, the person he was before has perished. The person he is now was reborn in its place.
Sharing his own personal experience, Gao warns students of the dire consequences of drug abuse.
I tore apart my family with my behavior. My family members could not hold their head up high in front of others. My drug use doesn't just affect me, but my entire family.
While serving time, Gao's father passed away and he shamefully attended his father's funeral in handcuffs. To date, his biggest regret is that his father was unable to see his transformation.
My behavior in the past caused my parents much suffering. They would have to be medicated just to sleep at night. I was not a good child to them.
If their heart to honor and respect their parents is sparked, then they will be determined to clean up their act and become sober. It's very powerful.
To facilitate change, Tzu Chi volunteers visit various prisons to spread the virtue of filial piety and doing charitable deeds.
可以呢洗涤既往的过错那建立了未来人生啊，这面对这一大群，在建议也好，看守所也好，这都是未来菩萨将成佛的人哦。
The Chinese character for education begins with the word for filial piety. Without filial piety, a family is without a foundation.
就是根没有了。
这一些种子在他们心中会得到。
These lessons will take root in their heart, and when they return to the world at large, they can help build a harmonious home and society.
一个祥和的家庭跟社会。
Volunteers bring Tzu Chi's unique humanitarian teachings to prison inmates in hopes of guiding them back on the right track.
I'm very glad about the program. If they can save one person who has strayed, then it's a winning situation. I've also gained my son back.
As Cai Tianshen helped Gao Zhaoliang, Gao is following in Cai's footsteps to help turn the lives of those lost around.
慈济顾名思义2个字是
Tzu Chi stands for compassionate relief. So being compassionate and giving is being a Tzu Chi volunteer. To spread the message of love wherever one goes, including prisons, is all about a volunteer's work.
One letter after another, Gao replies to inmates to encourage them to turn their life around. After all this time and seeing how well Gao has maintained his life, Cai, his mentor, is relieved. Now, as a Tzu Chi volunteer, it is Gao's duty and mission to be respectful of his parents, while spreading compassion and good to the world at large.
In Taiwan, to help children learn to make delicious and nutritional food, teachers at Qingjiang Elementary School have asked their students to make rice balls. Adding fresh vegetables and creativity to their rice balls, the students had a great time making their own snacks while enjoying learning to cherish food. We'll leave you with these images. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.